What's up YouTube? Welcome back to the channel. In today's video, I have some GoPro footage from my first ever mountain biking race, which was in Lake Fairfax, Virginia. So this was the Rails to River cross-country mountain biking race put on by an organization called EX2 Adventures. So you could choose, which race you wanted to enter into, either the 1-lap, 2-lap, or 3-lap race. So I just entered into the 1-lap race, considering this was my first ever mountain biking race, and the course was about a 7-mile loop. So in this video, you'll get to see my race during some parts. I kind of sped up the footage just so it's like a time lapse. But yeah, the course took me about 48 minutes total. It was definitely a great race, very tough course. And in this video, I kind of just want to talk about, like my bike setup, some of the mistakes that I made, maybe some of the things that I'll change for next time. So, this is the beginning of the race, and it's just on this gravel road right here. And the guy that I just passed, I actually probably should have stayed behind him because, later in the video, you'll see him actually pass me. So one of the more common mistakes probably for mountain biking races is going out too fast. So at the beginning of the race, I felt pretty good because, my legs were fresh, but I probably went out a little bit too hard. So right here, I'm probably in maybe 5th place overall. But throughout the race, people will slowly start passing me. So of course, I'm on my Trek Excalibur 8, which is an aluminum hardtail bike from Trek. And I posted a bike review video a couple months back, but I've made a couple of upgrades since then, so I'll have to make an upgrade version of that video. But pretty much just a 29er, 100mm suspension up front. I'm running some 2.25-inch Maxxis Aspen tires. I also have a dropper post. My gearing is 1x12 SRAM GX Eagle. And yeah, that's most of the notable stuff on the bike. So I think one of the major things that I definitely need to work on for future races is my cornering. But that could also be attributed to maybe I could have ran a little bit lower tire pressures, or I think 2.4-inch tires actually what's most popular now for pro riders, just because it gives you a little bit more confidence in the corner. So you'll see me wash out a little bit right here on this corner, just because I didn't get to warm up on the course. There was no pre-riding, and I had only ever been to this course once before, so I wasn't really familiar with the terrain that much. But as you can see, it's loose over hard pack, which basically just means there's like a loose layer of dirt or sand on top, and then underneath is just like hard pack or rocks, and definitely tons of roots. So this trail was actually, in my opinion, fairly technical. Lots of roots, lots of rocks, not too much flow. I mean, there are some sections here and there with flow, and also not too much elevation up and down, so it was fairly flat, although obviously there were some up and down hills. And also about 5 or 6 creek crossings, so that was actually kind of fun. But going through the creek, your tires and brakes get wet, so it's just even harder to stay upright. Good thing though, I didn't have any major crashes, so that was pretty good. But yeah, the race was pretty fun. You're probably hearing in some of the video that my breathing was fairly heavy. So I attribute that to 2 things. One is that I didn't explicitly train for this race. Leading up to it, I did some tapering type of workouts, some intervals. But I really just rode my bike for fun over the past couple months. Really didn't even get in that many miles before the race. So I've never considered myself an endurance athlete. I've always been more like a power sports athlete. You guys have seen the videos of me like running sprints and track and baseball on my YouTube channel. So I never really practice endurance, building my endurance. So that's one of the reasons probably my breathing was labored. I never really built up my cardiovascular system that well for an effort that's 48 minutes long. But also, this was in early May, so I do have pretty bad allergies when it comes to pollen. So I think that was definitely a big factor. Breathing heavy and then breathing in all that pollen just made my breathing even more labored as the pollen kind of got backed up in my lungs. So, for next time, I don't even know if I'll be able to race in any more races this summer because of the global pandemic. There aren't that many races in my area. This was one of the only main ones, close to where I live. So we'll see if I get to race again this summer. But if not, I definitely want to do some more races next summer, and maybe I'll be able to train a little bit more for those specifically. But yeah, as you can see here, there's a lot of routes on this trail, and one thing that I definitely came to notice or appreciate was having a full suspension mountain bike, even for cross-country races. So like I said, the bike I'm riding is a Hardtail with 100 millimeters of suspension up front. But with all of these roots and rocks on this fairly technical trail, I was having to do a lot of standing up in order to, just kind of absorb those bumps, while some other guys who were on lightweight carbon full suspension bikes could mostly sit down and pedal through some of these routes and stuff so that they could just conserve energy. So, obviously that's why if you see pro XC mountain biking races, the popular thing today is everybody has, a full suspension carbon mountain bike. Because even though it might be a tiny bit heavier than a carbon hardtail, having that compliance in the back of the bike is just so much better to conserve energy. And not only would it conserve energy, you might see in the video me kind of shaking out my hands because of so much vibrations that my forearms were just getting tired and my hands were getting tired. So with the hardtail, your body, back, arms, knees it's just getting beat up from all of the bumps and vibrations. So having a full suspension mountain bike is definitely a plus, even for cross-country races where weight is also very important. So throughout the video, you'll see guys kind of come around me a couple times. Like I said, I probably started out a little bit too fast, especially for my first race. And I don't think, after the first mile, I don't think I actually passed anyone else. So I was kind of just trying to hang on and not get passed by a bunch of other guys. So but definitely probably could have started out a little bit slower to conserve my energy, and then went a little bit harder towards the end. But even still, this is my first race, so there's definitely some strategic things I could work on for next time. But you also kind of notice that because of my background in power type of sports instead of endurance sports, such as sprinting or baseball, things like that, I kind of surge my efforts, not even intentionally. During the race, I was just trying to ride an even paced race, but what ends up happening is that I'll go hard for maybe half a mile to a mile, and then I'll be in oxygen debt, so I kind of have to relax at pace and sit back some. So what you'll kind of see is that with these surges, I'll kind of catch up to people and then maybe stay on for a while, but then fall back again, and then I'll surge my effort up again. So that's just kind of a testament to the type of endurance, not endurance, the type of power sports and energy systems that my body is used to, sprints and intervals and things like that, as opposed to sustaining an effort over 45 minutes or more. So like I said at the beginning of the video, there was a guy that I kind of passed who I should have stayed behind, and I'll actually at some point in this video kind of catch up to him, but then he'll also pull away from me after a mile of me catching up to him. So as you can see, the course was very, very technical. it's pretty hard to even pass people, even if I did have the opportunity to. Besides that gravel road at the beginning of the race, it was pretty much all single track all the way. There were some times when the course kind of opened up near these fields, and that was the opportunity for people to pass. But yeah, since this is not really like a UCI sanctioned event, it's just kind of honestly just kind of like an event for fun. The company that put it on just puts on like adventure races in general. I don't think that they had done a mountain biking race in a while, so this was definitely just a new thing for, I guess, this trail and everyone involved. But it was still fun. So basically what I'm saying is it's not like there were, I don't think, any like pro riders at this race, so people weren't like too serious. Like you could definitely pass people without them trying to like block you out or things like that. So especially since this is the quote-unquote beginner race, if you just tell the person in front that you're like passing on the left or right, they should definitely just move over and let you pass. But yeah, that kind of goes back to another thing. They kind of the race promoters promoted the 1-lap races, the beginner race, the 2-lap races, the sport category, and the 3-lap race as the expert category. But I'm pretty sure there were some people in this race who probably weren't really beginners. They just wanted to race in a shorter race. So that's fine. But everybody was probably still fairly new to racing, because like I said, this was my first ever mountain biking race, even though I've been riding bikes my entire life. But during my bike riding time, I never really had too much access to real trails like this. Like I would always have to like ride around the city or find trails here and there. But I'm definitely excited to start riding more real trails more often, so I can kind of get used to the terrain and things like that. I think my skills are actually fairly good considering all the time I've been riding bikes. I didn't have too much access to these real type of trails and jumps and things like that. So I'm pretty proud of the skill set that I did bring to this race. But yeah, you can see here I just kind of sped up some of the footage. During some parts of the race, it seemed like I was riding by myself for a long time, so I probably fell off the pace there. Like if I'm riding behind somebody, it seemed like I was pushing myself more, especially this guy right here. I think I rode behind him for like a mile or two. So this was a pretty fun kind of downhill section coming up, and I stayed behind him for a while. And like I said, I kind of searched my effort here. Like once he passed me, I kind of wanted to catch up to him, so I kind of rode behind him for a good while, and then we caught up to some other guys before they eventually all pulled off from my pace. So this was a pretty cool kind of fast section right here. I'm kind of glad I went through that part following someone, so they could kind of lead the path and I just followed their line. And yeah, here's another creek crossing, a bunch of creek crossings. I'm not even sure how many creek crossings there were. I'm estimating like 5 or 6 or more. So it was cool. You got to cool off some, but it definitely made your tires a little bit slippery, made your brakes a little bit slippery for a while until they dried off. So I think you can see here we kind of caught up to another guy, and I kind of stayed with them for a while through this flat and uphill section. So I was definitely expending a lot of energy, breathing really hard during this section, trying to keep up with them. So after a while, I guess I couldn't keep up the pace, and they kind of pulled away. Throughout the race, I actually could never even tell sometimes, but most times I couldn't even tell if someone was behind me, because I was so focused on like the trail in front of me, I never looked back. So the only time I could tell if someone was behind me was like through a creek crossing, if I heard their bike, or if I heard their bike like rattling behind me. But yeah, having someone in front of you and behind you definitely pushes you to increase your pace. So hopefully you guys get a good idea of what the terrain was like. You know, lots of roots, lots of rocks, lots of tight turns. Not that many places to really like open it up and get a ton of speed. I mean, there were a couple places here and there, but because most of it was like such tight turns, so the speeds weren't always that high. So yeah, so this was probably one of my more favorite parts of the race, just like riding with these guys, because like I said, I think kind of after this is when I was riding by myself for probably like 15 or more minutes, like, because no one was passing me. I wasn't passing anybody else. I didn't see anybody else. So this right here like really made me feel like I was racing, you know, with these two guys behind me. I think at this point there might have been two guys right behind me as well. So this part of the race was pretty cool. I'll have to do another video about, you know, what equipment I kind of carried during the race. I went back and forth on what to carry, but mainly, you know, I just carried one bottle of water with electrolytes. You can see my Garmin GPS on the handlebars. And I also ended up just carrying a CO2 canister, a multi-tool, and a Stans tire dart. I didn't bring an inner tube because I figured, you know, since the race is only 7 miles, that, you know, if I had to change my tire, the race would definitely be over, and I wouldn't have to walk back that far. So I ended up not bringing an inner tube, but it all worked out well. I didn't have to use any of my tools. I didn't get any flats. You know, tubeless tires are definitely the truth, so it all worked out well. Yeah, the section I just passed through actually had a couple of jump lines, but I was just too tired to hit any jumps, so I just kind of went around them. I think starting now is when I didn't really see anyone else for a good long while, so I probably fell off my pace a good amount. If I had, you know, just tried to keep up with those other guys a little bit more, definitely could have, you know, made up some places in the race or decreased my time. So at the end of the race, I'll tell you guys kind of what my place was overall in my age group. So you have to stick around for that. But I definitely think I did pretty well for my first ever mountain biking race. It was definitely fun. I definitely recommend, if you're into biking or any sports at all, just try and get out there and compete, because, you know, competing definitely makes you a better athlete or rider, and just, you know, increases your fitness because you're pushing yourself so hard that your body just makes gains afterwards. So here's another big creek crossing. This next part was kind of not my favorite part of the race. It was just a slight uphill and almost like double track. So this was just kind of a slow going part. I guess previous to this we had been going mostly downhill, so this part was kind of like coming out of the valley for this particular course. So I just sped this part up a little bit. I was able to drink some water during this time, get rehydrated. And again, I didn't see anybody for a while during this particular part. So I probably definitely was going slower than I should have been. But you know, I kind of recovered during this part, got some water, and got ready for the next part. So I think at this point, I'm probably at mile 4 or 5, I want to say, so about 2 or 3 miles left in the race. So I kind of knew that I was getting close to the finish line. I had no idea what place I was in here. I just knew that I hadn't seen anybody in a while. Another big creek crossing right here. A little bit of gravel actually on this part of the trail. Yeah, so I'll check in with you guys in a little bit. So now we're kind of coming out of that long uphill portion where I didn't see anybody, and I finally see somebody pass me. Not sure how long he was riding behind me, but here's one of those instances where we're riding kind of by the field and you could have passed people, and that guy did pass me. I tried to stay on his tail for a while, but I don't know, just couldn't keep up for long. I think he definitely had a full suspension bike. Not sure if it was carbon or not, but that kind of goes back to what I was saying before, like having a full suspension really does help. Even if it's maybe a tiny bit heavier, the full suspension definitely does help. Just being able to sit down and pedal over roots and stuff a little bit easier, or just like saving your legs and arms from all the vibrations and impact. It definitely helps. So hopefully, I don't know, maybe my next bike in the future will be a lightweight full suspension cross country bike. Like I said, I never really was able to ride too often on like quote unquote real trails. Here and there I would have time to, or I would drive to them, but I never really rode on enough big trails or like grueling trails that warranted like a trail or enduro bike. One day I would definitely like one of those, but I think my ideal bike would definitely be a lightweight cross-country bike, just like 100 to maybe 120 millimeters of travel up front and back. That would definitely be perfect. So this is actually a pretty cool section coming up towards the end of the race. There's a bunch of long downhills, turns, kind of a fast section of the course. So at this point, I think I have about a mile left. I can't remember if we passed the mile marker or not, but I kind of knew I was getting towards the end. So, I was getting a little bit antsy, trying to pick up the pace a little bit. So that probably made me make a mistake coming up here. I actually made two mistakes coming up, but the first one you'll kind of see it. I didn't crash at all throughout the race, so that was good. But definitely made a couple of mistakes. Mostly on probably turns. Like I said, just got to work on my turning abilities and things like that. But also, in a cross country race, your body is just so tired that you just get lazy with your form and your cornering technique. So that's also another just aspect of cross-country mountain biking racing. So coming up here, I think there's another creek crossing. I think there's the last creek crossing. So let's see. Yep, here's the last creek crossing. So I kind of went wide this way. There's a lot of mud on this one, and I think I just went up a little bit too high on the left, so I kind of slipped down. Had to unclip my feet, kind of push off. And at this moment, I'm pretty sure I heard somebody behind me, so I was like, oh crap, let me pick up the pace, because I knew we were near the finish line, so I heard somebody behind me. So I tried to pick it up a little bit after I made that mistake. Yeah, that was the other thing I forgot to mention in terms of just my bike setup. I'm definitely riding clipless pedals. I've been riding clipless for years now, and once you go clipless, you definitely can never go back. Just being able to put more power down is a plus, and also if you're going through a bumpy, rooty section, your feet are not going to fall off the pedals. So I definitely love clipless pedals over flat pedals. So coming up here, this is almost the final sprint. So we're probably about a half mile or less from the finish line. This grass really got me. I was tired. So I think this is the last guy that passes me. I think if I saw the results correctly, I think this guy actually won the race, because since it was chip timed, I think he started back way back compared to everyone else. But he actually, finished. His time was actually faster than everybody else. He actually won, but I actually thought I'd be able to pass him again. I kind of saved a tiny bit of energy for my final sprint, and being a sprint athlete, I definitely was excited for the final sprint, and I thought I would have a lot left in the final sprint. but I made one final mistake and this guy got away, but it was okay. So you'll see me in a second here lock out my suspension. So I just locked out my suspension right there because I thought we were about to sprint, and I forgot that the course was going to go this way onto this last piece of single track. So when we just started on the gravel road. We didn't even go on the single track. So I had locked out my suspension, getting ready to sprint up the hill to the finish line, but in fact we had this small piece of single track, and I was going down it with locked out suspension. So I kind of just like cruised down this. I knew I wasn't going to catch the other guy anymore. But yeah, here's the final sprint. It was a brutal finish, like uphill and grass. Now you'll see me lock out the suspension, get out of the saddle, and just start cranking away to the finish line. So yeah, like I said, I had a dropper post that definitely helped in some downhill sections. And I think a remote lockout is also a good idea for XC riding. Just so you don't have to reach down like I did, you can just press a button and lock out your suspension. So here's the finish line, 48 minutes later, 7 miles later, and I finished in my age group 5th overall, and overall in the entire one lap race 15th overall. So it was definitely a great race, a great outcome, and definitely look forward to my next mountain biking race. So if you guys have any questions, leave a comment down below. I'll catch you guys in the next video.
Expect me like you expect Jesus to come back. Expect him coming.